The dawn broke cold over Paradise Valley, painting the eastern sky in shades of blood and amber. Elena Ashford stood before a simple wooden cross, her breath forming small clouds in the autumn air. 6 months. 6 months since the earth had swallowed the only man who ever knew her real name. The grave sat on a hill overlooking the ranch exactly where Richard had asked to be buried. From here, he had told her once, you could see the whole valley. The river winding silver through the grasslands. The mountains standing watch like ancient sentinels. The future, he had said, smiling in that quiet way of his. You could see the future from this spot. Elena saw only the past. Her hands, weathered by years of hard work, held a letter. The paper was thick, expensive. The kind Richard used for important things. The seal was unbroken red wax, stamped with his initial. R for Richard, R for the man who had married a ghost and never asked her to become real. The envelope bore a single instruction in his careful script. Open when I am gone. She had carried it every day since they laid him in the ground. Carried it to the barn in the morning when she fed the horses. Carried it to the house at night when sleep refused to come. The weight of it never changed, but somehow it grew heavier with each passing hour. Elena could not open it. Could not face whatever truth Richard had written in those final days when the sickness took him slowly, stealing him piece by piece. When he lay in their bed, his skin the color of old paper, whispering words she pretended not to understand. I always knew, he had said. I always knew Elena, not her name, her real name, the one she had buried 16 years ago, along with everything else. The sun climbed higher, warming nothing. Elena traced the letters carved into the wood. Richard Lambert, beloved husband. The word beloved caught in her throat. Had she been a good wife to him, or had she been what she always was, a woman playing a part, speaking borrowed lines, waiting for the curtain to fall? A sound pulled her from the grave. Hoofbeats, single rider approaching from the eastern road. Elena's hand moved instinctively to her hip, where the Remington revolver rested hidden beneath her coat. Old habits, dangerous habits, the kind that got people asking questions she could not answer. She turned from the grave, tucking the letter back into her pocket. The rider was still a quarter-mile away, but Elena could already tell it was a stranger. The horse moved with city rhythm, uncomfortable on mountain roads. The man sat too straight in the saddle like someone who had learned to ride from a book. Elena walked down the hill toward the ranch house, keeping her movements slow, natural. Just a widow out for a morning walk, nothing more, nothing less. She had played this role for 5 years. It should have felt like truth by now. The ranch spread below her like a painting. The main house Richard had built with his own hands. The stables where Midnight, her black Arabian stallion, waited for his morning run. The fences, straight and strong. The life they had made together, Richard and his ghost bride. Maria was already on the porch when Elena reached the house. The older woman's face showed nothing, but her hands moved quickly, wiping flour from her apron. Maria Santos had worked for them since the beginning. She knew things. Not everything, but enough. Enough to stay quiet. Enough to stand between Elena and the world when needed. The stranger rode into the yard just as Elena reached the porch steps. Up close, he was younger than she had guessed. Late 30s, perhaps, dark hair going silver at the temples. A face that had seen things, but not forgotten how to be kind. He wore a doctor's bag across his saddle and the dust of a long journey on his clothes. He removed his hat as he dismounted, a gesture of respect that felt genuine. His eyes, pale gray like winter sky, found Elena and held. "Good morning," he said. His voice was educated Eastern. "Boston, maybe? Or Philadelphia? I am looking for Mrs. Elena Ashford." Elena felt Maria shift beside her, ready to lie if needed. But something in the stranger's face stopped her from speaking. Something in the way he looked at her. Not with desire, not with threat, but with recognition. "I am Elena Ashford," she said. The stranger's expression did not change, but something flickered in those gray eyes. Relief, sadness. "Both. My name is Thomas Mercer," he said. "I am a medical investigator, forensic pathology. I specialize in cases where the cause of death is uncertain or suspicious." Elena's heart kicked once hard against her ribs. She kept her face still. "My husband died of consumption," she said. There was nothing uncertain about it. Thomas Mercer nodded slowly, as if he had expected this response. He reached into his coat, moving carefully, keeping his hands visible. He pulled out a leather folder and held it up for her to see. "May I approach?" he asked. Elena nodded. Maria's hand found the small of her back, a touch of supportive warning. Thomas walked forward, stopped at a respectful distance, and opened the folder. Inside were papers, medical records, death certificates, letters. "Your husband consulted me 3 years ago," Thomas said. "He had concerns about several deaths in the territory. Men who had died suddenly. Men who had known certain things about certain people." Elena's fingers found the letter in her pocket. "I always knew." Thomas continued, his voice gentle but firm. "He asked me to investigate, to keep records, to watch, and if anything happened to him, to come here, to speak with you." The morning sun was bright now, but Elena felt cold. So cold. Why, she asked. Thomas looked at her for a long moment. "Because your husband believed he was being murdered, slowly, over time, and he wanted to make sure that when he died, someone would know the truth." The world tilted. Elena gripped the porch railing. Thomas stepped closer, his voice dropping. "He also asked me to check on someone. A young woman in Boston, Amelia Lawrence. He wanted to know she was safe, that she was well. I have been sending him reports for 3 years. Elena's vision narrowed. The letter burned in her pocket. The secret she had carried for 16 years, suddenly heavy enough to crush her. She wanted to run, wanted to mount midnight and ride until the past could not follow. But she was 42 years old and tired of running. So tired. "You should leave," she said. Thomas shook his head slowly. "I cannot. Not yet. Because there are men watching this ranch, Mrs. Ashford. Men who have been asking questions about you, about your husband, about things that happened a long time ago." He paused, weighing his next words. "Men who call you by another name. Ghostwriter." The name hit Elena like a physical blow. She had not heard it spoken aloud in 16 years, had almost convinced herself it belonged to someone else, some other woman in some other life. Maria's hand tightened on her back. Thomas's expression was careful, almost apologetic. "I do not know everything, Mrs. Ashford. Your husband kept many things from me. But I know enough to understand that you are in danger, and I believe that danger is connected to his death." He held up the folder again. "I have evidence that Richard Lambert was poisoned with arsenic, small doses over months, enough to mimic consumption, enough to hide the truth." Elena's knees wanted to give. She locked them, forced herself to stay upright. Around her, the ranch continued its morning routine. Birds sang, horses nickered in the stables. The world kept turning as if nothing had changed, but everything had changed. Elena looked at Thomas Mercer and made a decision, not because she trusted him, but because the alternative was to let Richard's death mean nothing. "Come inside," she said. The house was exactly as Richard had left it. His coat still hung by the door. His books lined the shelves. His coffee cup sat on the kitchen table where Maria could not bring herself to put it away. Elena led Thomas to the small parlor, the room where Richard had spent his final weeks watching the valley through the window. Thomas set his folder on the table, but did not open it. Instead, he waited, letting Elena choose her moment. Maria brought coffee, strong and black, the way Richard used to drink it. She poured 3 cups and sat down with them, making it clear she was part of this conversation, whether the stranger liked it or not. Elena wrapped her hands around the warm cup and tried to remember how to speak. "How much did Richard tell you?" she asked. Thomas's answer was careful. "He told me you had a past you wished to leave behind, that there were people who might wish you harm. He asked me to investigate deaths that seemed to follow a pattern, men who had served in the war, men who had been in certain places at certain times." Elena nodded slowly. The pattern. She had seen it too before she became Elena Ashford, before she buried herself in this valley and pretended the war had never touched her. "Did he tell you about Amelia?" she asked, the name catching in her throat. Thomas's expression softened. "He told me she was important to you, that she must be protected. I have been watching her," as he asked. "She is safe. She is well. She lives with a good family and goes to a fine school." Elena's eyes burned. She had not cried at Richard's funeral, had not cried through the long months after. But now, hearing that her daughter was safe, the tears came unbidden. Maria's hand found hers under the table. Thomas looked away, giving her privacy. When Elena had regained control, he spoke again, his voice quiet. "Mrs. Ashford, I need to ask you a question, and I need you to answer truthfully. Your life may depend on it." Elena nodded. "The man who is hunting you," Thomas said, "the man who left markings at the Thompson Ranch, the man whose soldiers are circling this valley, is his name James Blackwood?" The coffee cup slipped from Elena's fingers. It hit the table, but did not break. Coffee spread across the wood like blood. "He is dead," Elena whispered. "James Blackwood died in the Dakota Territory 16 years ago. The massacre. Everyone died." Thomas shook his head. "Number," he survived. "And he has spent the last 16 years building an empire in the shadows, stealing land, eliminating witnesses, looking for the one thing you took from him." Elena's voice came out broken. "The ledger." "Yes," Thomas said. "The ledger." The room fell silent. Outside, a horse whinnied, midnight sensing her distress across the distance. Elena stood, walked to the window, stared out at the valley. Her sanctuary, the place where she had dared to believe the past would not find her. She reached into her pocket and pulled out Richard's letter. The seal stared up at her, red and accusing. Thomas spoke behind her. "He knew about Amelia, did he not, your husband? He knew everything." Elena turned. "How did you know?" "Because he asked me to protect her like she was his own daughter," Thomas said. "A man does not do that unless he understands what a child means to a mother, what secrets a mother might keep." Elena's hands trembled as she broke the seal. The wax crumbled like old blood. Inside, Richard's handwriting covered 3 pages. But Elena read only the first line before her knees gave out. Maria caught her, guided her to a chair. Thomas did not move, did not press. Elena read aloud, her voice barely a whisper. "My dearest Eleanor," not Elena, Eleanor. Her real name, the name she had not spoken in 16 years. She continued reading, tears streaming now. "If you are reading this, then my suspicions were correct. They found me. But I want you to know that I never blamed you for running. I never blamed you for changing your name. I never blamed you for the secret you carry. I knew from the first day we met who you really were. I saw the fear in your eyes when that military parade passed through town. I saw you flinch when they played the cavalry trumpet. I knew about Amelia. I have known for years." Elena's voice broke. She could not continue. Thomas spoke, his voice gentle. "May I?" Elena handed him the letter with shaking hands. Thomas read in a steady voice. "The account in Boston. I have been adding to it. She will be taken care of. What I did not tell you is that Colonel James Blackwood is not dead. He survived the massacre. And he has been looking for you, not just for revenge, but for what you took from him that night in 1862. The ledger, Eleanor. He wants the ledger. I hid it where only you would know to look. Remember our first night under the stars. Remember what I said about the brightest star being the one that guides you home. Be brave. Be smarter than him. And Eleanor, forgive yourself. Amelia deserves to know her mother. Always yours, Richard." The silence that followed was absolute. Elena sat with her head in her hands, all her walls finally crumbling. Maria held her shoulders steady as stone. Thomas folded the letter carefully and placed it on the table. "I am sorry," he said, "for your loss, for what you have carried alone." Elena looked up at him. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steel. "Why are you really here, Dr. Mercer? Why does Richard's death matter to you?" Thomas met her gaze. "Because 15 good men have died in the last 3 years. All of them connected to that ledger. All of them killed by Blackwood's men. Your husband was the 16th. I have been tracking this pattern, building a case. But I need that ledger. I need the proof of what Blackwood did, what he is still doing." Elena stood, walked to the mantel, and stared at the only photograph she kept, her wedding day. Richard smiling, steady, sure. Beside him, a woman who looked like Elena, but was not quite her. A woman learning to be someone new. "There is something you need to know," Elena said quietly. "Something Richard did not tell you. Something no one knows except Maria." She turned to face Thomas. "Amelia is not just a child I cared about," Elena said. "She is my daughter, I gave birth to her 16 years ago and left her with a family in Boston. I have not seen her since she was 3 months old." Thomas's expression did not change, but something shifted in his eyes. Elena continued each word, costing her. "And James Blackwood is her father." Now Thomas stood, shock breaking through his control. What Elena's voice was hollow. "I was sent to infiltrate his unit, to gather evidence. I did my job too well. He believed I loved him, and I let him believe it because I needed his trust. When I discovered I was pregnant, I ran. I took the ledger and I disappeared. I thought he died in the massacre 3 months later. I thought it was over." She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold. "I gave Amelia to a good family and I vanished. I became someone else. I married Richard and I tried to forget. But you cannot forget your own child, Dr. Mercer. You cannot forget her face, her eyes. Every day for 16 years I have carried that weight." Thomas sank back into his chair, processing. "Does she know?" Elena shook her head. "She thinks her parents died when she was a baby. She knows nothing of me, nothing of him. It is safer that way." Maria spoke for the first time, her voice hard. "But it is not safe anymore, is it, if Blackwood is alive? If he is looking for Eleanor? How long before he finds out about the girl?" Thomas's face went pale. "He has resources, connections. If he starts investigating your past, following the money Richard sent to Boston, he will find her." Elena finished. "And when he does, he will use her to get to me, to get the ledger." The three of them sat in heavy silence, the weight of 16 years of secrets pressing down. Thomas finally spoke. "Then we must move faster. We must find the ledger, turn it over to the authorities, and end this before Blackwood gets close to Amelia." Elena laughed, a broken sound. "The authorities, the same ones Blackwood has in his pocket, the same ones who have ignored 15 murders." Thomas leaned forward. "Not all of them. I have contacts, federal marshals who are clean, judges who cannot be bought, but they need evidence. They need that ledger." Elena turned back to the window. Richard's clue about the brightest star. She knew what he meant. Their first night together, camping under the Montana sky. He had pointed to the North Star and said it would always guide them home. And the next morning they had found an abandoned cabin, a place they returned to only once more years later to bury something precious. "I know where it is," Elena said, "but we cannot go now, not in daylight, not with Blackwood's men watching." Thomas nodded. "Tonight, then, under cover of darkness." A sound from outside made them all freeze. Horses, multiple riders. Elena moved to the window, careful to stay hidden. Her heart sank. 5 men rode into the yard, rough-looking, armed. They did not try to hide their weapons. Their leader, a man with a scarred face and dead eyes, dismounted and approached the porch. Maria stood. "I will handle this." Elena grabbed her arm. "No, they are not here for you. Stay inside." She walked to the door, opened it, stepped out onto the porch alone. The morning sun was high now, bright and merciless. The scarred man smiled, showing teeth gone brown with tobacco. "Mrs. Ashford," he said, his voice like gravel, "we are looking for something that belongs to our employer. We believe your late husband may have come across it." Elena kept her voice level. "I do not know what you are talking about." The scarred man's smile widened. "A ledger, ma'am. Old military records, very valuable to certain people. We are willing to pay for its return." "I know nothing of any ledger," Elena said. The man nodded as if he had expected this answer. He glanced at his companions, then back to Elena. "That is unfortunate, ma'am, because our employer is not a patient man, and when he wants something, he tends to take it." He let the threat hang in the air. Elena's hand moved slowly to her hip. The Remington felt solid under her palm. Around her she could feel Thomas and Maria inside, listening. She could feel midnight in the stables, restless. She could feel the valley holding its breath. "You should leave," Elena said quietly, "while you still can." The scarred man laughed. "You threatening us, widow, 5 men against 1 woman?" Elena's smile was cold. "I have been worse odds." Something in her eyes made the scarred man pause. He looked at her again, really looked, and Elena saw the moment of recognition, the moment he understood exactly who he was facing. "Ghost Rider," he breathed. Then several things happened at once. The scarred man reached for his gun. Elena drew faster, her Remington clearing leather in a heartbeat. She fired once, the bullet taking his gun from his hand without touching flesh. The other 4 men reached for their weapons. Thomas burst through the door, his own pistol raised. Maria appeared at a window with a shotgun. But before anyone else could fire, a new sound split the morning. A bugle call, military, coming from the North Ridge. Everyone froze. A single rider appeared on the ridgeline, silhouetted against the sky. He sat his horse with perfect military posture. Even from this distance, Elena could see he was watching, waiting. The scarred man clutched his hand, staring at Elena with new fear. He backed toward his horse, his men following. As they mounted, he called out, his voice shaking. "He is coming for you, Ghost Rider. The colonel is coming. And when he gets here, there will not be enough bullets in Montana to save you." They rode off fast and frightened. Elena kept her gun trained on the figure on the ridge. He did not move, did not approach, just sat there watching. After a long moment, he raised one hand in what might have been a salute or a promise. Then he turned his horse and disappeared over the ridge. Thomas came to stand beside Elena, his own weapon still drawn. Was that him? Elena nodded slowly. That was him. James Blackwood. Thomas's voice was tight. "I thought you said he did not know where you were." Elena lowered her gun, her hands suddenly shaking. "I was wrong. He has known all along. He has just been waiting, building his forces, making his plans." She turned to Thomas, and for the first time real fear showed in her eyes. "And now he is ready." The rest of the day passed in tense preparation. Thomas rode to town to send telegrams to his contacts. Maria secured the ranch, moving supplies, preparing defenses. Elena checked every weapon, counted every bullet, and tried not to think about the man watching from the ridge. As evening fell, Wei Chen arrived for his evening shift with the horses. The young man was 19, slight but strong, with his father's gift for understanding animals. Elena had hired him 2 years ago when other ranchers would not. Now he was the only one she trusted with Midnight. Wei noticed the tension immediately. "Trouble, Miss Elena." She considered lying, then decided he deserved the truth. He was here. If shooting started, he needed to know why. "There may be men coming," she said. "Dangerous men. You should go home tonight. Take your family somewhere safe." Wei's jaw tightened. "My father taught me that when good people run, bad people win. I will stay. I will help." Elena wanted to argue, but saw the determination in his young face. "You are your father's son?" Wei smiled slightly. "He also taught me to shoot. I am not as good as you, but I am not bad." As darkness settled over the valley, Elena and Thomas prepared to ride out. Maria tried to insist on coming, but Elena refused. "Someone must stay," she said. "Someone must protect this place, if we do not return by dawn." Maria's eyes flashed. "You will return. You are Eleanor Kessler. You do not get to die until you meet your daughter." The words hit Elena like a punch. She nodded, unable to speak. Thomas checked his pistol one final time. "Are you ready?" Elena looked at the ranch, at the home Richard had built, at the life they had shared, at the grave on the hill where he waited for her in the dark. "No," she said, "but when have I ever been ready?" They rode out under a moonless sky, the stars so bright they seemed close enough to touch. Elena led them north, following paths she had not traveled in years. Thomas rode behind, silent, trusting her knowledge of the land. After an hour they reached the place. The cabin stood in a small clearing, barely more than 4 walls and a roof. But it was where Richard had first told Elena he loved her, where she had first dared to believe in happiness. They dismounted, tied the horses. Elena walked to the cabin's east wall, counted 3 boards up, pressed. A section of the wall swung inward on hidden hinges. Richard's cleverness, his gift for secrets. Inside the hidden space was a metal box. Elena pulled it out with shaking hands. Thomas lit a match, holding it close. Elena opened the box. Inside lay a leather-bound book, the ledger. Next to it, letters, dozens of them, and underneath a bundle wrapped in cloth. Thomas reached for the ledger, but Elena stopped him. "Wait," she said. She unwrapped the cloth bundle. Inside were more letters. These were different, newer, and they were addressed to her, From Amelia. Elena's breath caught. She opened the first one, dated 3 months ago. The handwriting was young, feminine, careful. Dear Mrs. Ashford, it began. You do not know me, but I believe you knew my mother. Her name was Eleanor Kessler. I have been searching for information about her for years. Recently I found evidence that she did not die when I was a baby, that she may still be alive, that she may have known your late husband. I am writing to ask if you have any information about her, any clues about where she might have gone. I know this is a strange request, but I have spent my whole life wondering about the woman who gave birth to me. Please, if you know anything, I am begging you to tell me. Sincerely, Amelia Lawrence. Elena's hands trembled. She looked at Thomas. Did Richard... He was protecting you, Thomas said gently, keeping you separated, keeping her safe. But she found out anyway. She has been writing for months. Elena opened the next letter, and the next, each one more desperate, more certain. In the last one, dated 2 weeks ago, Amelia's tone had changed. I know you are her, it read. I know you are my mother. I have seen the money transfers. I have traced the connections. I am not a child anymore. I am 16 years old, and I deserve to know the truth. I am coming to Montana. I will be there within the week. You can hide from me, but you cannot stop me from finding you. Elena looked at Thomas, horror and hope warring in her chest. She is coming here. Thomas's face was grim. Then Blackwood's timing is not coincidence. If he has been watching her, tracking her correspondence, he knows Elena finished. He knows she is coming, and he will use her to get to me. A sound outside froze them both. Footsteps. Multiple people moving quietly. Elena grabbed the ledger, shoved it inside her coat. Thomas drew his pistol. They moved to the cabin door, backs against the wall. Elena counted footsteps. At least 4 people. Maybe more. Then a voice called out, one Elena had not heard in 16 years, but would recognize in any darkness. Eleanor James Blackwood said, I know you are in there. Come out. Let us talk like civilized people. Elena and Thomas exchanged glances. No choice. She pushed open the door, stepped out into starlight. Thomas followed, gun ready. Blackwood stood 20 feet away, surrounded by men. He was older now, 54. His hair had gone silver. His face was harder. But his eyes were the same, cold, brilliant, haunted. He looked at Elena and smiled. After all these years, he said, You are still beautiful. Elena raised her pistol. Stay back. Blackwood raised his hands, showing he was unarmed. I am not here to hurt you, Eleanor. I am here to make you an offer. Thomas stepped forward. She does not want anything from you, Blackwood. The colonel's eyes shifted to Thomas. His smile faded. His face went pale. Thomas, he whispered. Little brother Elena's gun wavered. She looked at Thomas. Brother Thomas's expression was anguished. He did not lower his weapon. I am sorry, Eleanor. I should have told you. James Blackwood is my older brother. The world tilted. Elena stared at Thomas' betrayal and understanding crashing through her. You knew, she breathed. You knew all along. Thomas shook his head. I knew who you were. I knew what you did. But I swear I am not working with him. I came here to stop him, to save you. Blackwood laughed, the sound bitter. How touching. My own brother choosing a traitor over blood. Thomas's gun stayed level. You stopped being my brother when you massacred those villages, when you became a monster. Blackwood's face hardened. I did what war demanded. You did what power demanded. Thomas shot back. And you have been chasing it ever since. The brothers stared at each other across the darkness. Elena stood between them, her mind reeling. Thomas was Blackwood's brother, had known who she was from the beginning, had come to her ranch with Richard's message, Richard's secrets, had made her trust him. And now Amelia was coming, her daughter, Blackwood's daughter, coming into a trap she could not see. Elena made a decision. She lowered her gun. What do you want? James Blackwood's attention snapped back to her. What I have always wanted, the truth. That ledger contains lies, Eleanor, fabrications meant to destroy me. I want a chance to prove my innocence. Elena laughed harshly. Innocence. You killed children. I followed orders, Blackwood said. I did my duty. And yes, I crossed lines. But war makes monsters of us all. You know that better than anyone. He took a step closer. You used me, Eleanor. You made me love you. You took my trust, and you destroyed my life with it. Do you know what that does to a man?" Elena met his eyes. "I know what you did to those villages. I saw the reports. I read your letters to your commanders. You enjoyed it, James. The killing, the power." Blackwood's jaw clenched. "Give me the ledger. Let me clear my name. And I will leave you alone. You can have your ranch, your peaceful life, your secrets." Elena's voice was ice, and Amelia Blackwood froze. The name hung in the air between them like a ghost. "What did you say?" he whispered. Elena felt Thomas tense beside her. She had not meant to say the name, but now it was out. Now there was no taking it back. "Amelia," she repeated, "our daughter. The child I gave birth to 16 years ago. The child you never knew existed." Blackwood stared at her. For a moment, all the hardness left his face, all the cruelty. He looked young again, vulnerable, human. "We have a daughter," he breathed. Had Elena said, "You gave up the right to her when you became what you are." Blackwood's expression shifted. Emotions warred across his features. Shock, joy, rage, pain. "Where is she?" "Safe," Elena said. "Somewhere you will never find her." Blackwood looked at Thomas. "You knew," he said. It was not a question. Thomas nodded slowly. "Richard asked me to watch over her, to make sure she was protected." "From me?" Blackwood finished. "From everyone," Thomas said. "She is innocent in all of this." Blackwood's hands trembled. "I have a daughter," he repeated. "A child. My blood." Elena saw the calculation in his eyes, saw him processing, planning. She raised her gun again. "You will never meet her, James. I will die before I let you near her." Blackwood's smile returned colder now. "You do not get to make that choice, Eleanor. I have resources. I have men. I will find her, and when I do, I will have everything I have ever wanted. The ledger, the truth, and my family." Thomas stepped between them. "Over my dead body, brother." Blackwood looked at him with something like sadness. "It may come to that." Then the night exploded. Gunfire erupted from the trees. Blackwood's men scattered. Thomas grabbed Elena, pulled her behind the cabin. Bullets splintered wood around them. More riders appeared. Federal marshals, their badges glinting. Thomas's contacts arriving at last. Blackwood ran for his horse, his men covering his retreat. He paused at the tree line, looked back at Elena. "This is not over," he called. "I will find her, Eleanor. I will find our daughter. And then you will have to choose, the ledger or her life." He disappeared into the darkness. The shooting stopped as suddenly as it started. The marshals rounded up the men Blackwood left behind. Thomas and Elena emerged from cover shaken. Marshal Wallace approached an older man with kind eyes. "We got your message, Dr. Mercer. Came as fast as we could." Thomas nodded. Blackwood escaped. Wallace looked grim. "We will find him, and with the ledger we can finally bring him to justice." Elena handed over the leather-bound book. "Take it, use it, end this." But even as she said the words, she knew it was not over. Blackwood knew about Amelia now, and he would stop at nothing to find her. They rode back to the ranch in silence. Elena's mind raced. She had to get word to Amelia, had to warn her, had to find a way to protect her daughter from the monster who was her father. As they reached the ranch, dawn was breaking. Maria waited on the porch, her face tight with worry. "Telegram came," she said, "from Boston." Elena's heart sank. She took the paper with shaking hands. "Mother," it read, "they know where I am. Men asking questions. Please help. I am coming to you. I will be on the evening train. Please do not turn me away. I know you are afraid, but I am not a child anymore. I am coming home. Your daughter, Amelia." Elena looked at Thomas. "She calls me mother." Thomas's expression was pained. "She has known longer than we thought." Maria spoke quietly. "The train arrives tonight. She will be here by morning." Elena stared at the telegram. After 16 years of separation, after a lifetime of guilt and fear and hope, her daughter was coming home, and James Blackwood was waiting. Thomas touched her shoulder gently. "We will protect her, Eleanor. I swear it." Elena looked at him. This man who was Blackwood's brother, who had lied to her, who had known her secrets from the beginning. Could she trust him? Could she trust anyone? But in his eyes she saw only sincerity, only determination. "Why?" she asked. "Why are you helping me?" Thomas looked away. "Because 16 years ago I saw what my brother became. I saw him destroy villages. I saw him kill without mercy. And I did nothing. I was young. I was afraid. But I knew. And when you stole that ledger, when you escaped, I helped you." Elena's eyes widened. What Thomas met her gaze. "That night in Fort Laramie, when you ran, I saw you. I could have stopped you. I could have sounded the alarm, but I did not. I let you go, because what James was doing was wrong. And you were the only one brave enough to stop him." He paused. "I have carried that guilt for 16 years. The guilt of doing nothing while my brother became a monster. So when Richard contacted me, when he asked me to protect you and Amelia, I knew it was my chance. My chance to finally do the right thing." Elena absorbed this. Another secret, another layer. And now she asked. "Now," Thomas said, "I help you protect our daughter, your daughter, the innocent in all of this. Our daughter." The words hung between them, not biologically, but in every way that mattered. Maria cleared her throat. "The girl will be here in hours. We need a plan." Elena nodded. She looked at the valley spreading before her, her sanctuary, her prison, the place where she had tried to bury the past. But the past never stayed buried. She thought of Richard lying on the hill, his last words echoing. "I always knew." He had known everything, and he had loved her anyway. Elena straightened her shoulders, checked her guns, looked at the people around her. Maria, who had stayed loyal through everything. Way, who had chosen to stand rather than run. Thomas, who carried his own burden of guilt and was trying to redeem himself. And somewhere on a train racing west, a 16-year-old girl who did not know she was riding into a war. Elena made her choice. We bring her here, we keep her safe, and we end this, once and for all. Thomas nodded. How Elena smiled. "The same way I ended it before, with the truth. James wants to clear his name. He thinks that ledger contains lies. Let him believe it. Let him come for it. And when he does, we give him something better." What Maria asked. Elena's eyes were hard as winter stone. "We give him a choice. His daughter's love or his revenge. Let us see which one he chooses." The sun climbed higher, burning away the mist. A new day, a new battle. But this time, Elena was not running. This time, she was standing her ground. Because some things were worth fighting for. Some secrets were worth revealing. And some ghosts were ready to finally step into the light. Ghost Rider was coming home, and Paradise Valley would never be the same. The hours before the train arrived stretched like years. Elena stood in the room that had once been Richard's study, staring at the items spread across his desk. Letters from Amelia, photographs she had never seen. Her daughter's life carefully documented by a husband who had loved them both. In one photograph, Amelia stood in front of a Boston brownstone, perhaps 14 years old. Dark hair like Elena's, eyes the color of winter sky like her father's, a face that combined the best of both parents and the worst of neither. She was smiling, but there was something in her expression, a loneliness, a searching. Thomas appeared in the doorway, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. He had not slept either. None of them had. "She looks like you," he said quietly, handing Elena a cup. Elena traced the photograph with one finger. "She looks like herself, like someone I never got the chance to know." Thomas stood beside her, studying the pictures. Richard kept detailed records, school reports, letters from her teachers, even drawings she made as a child. He was more her father than I was her mother. Elena said, her voice breaking. "You gave her life," Thomas said. "You gave her safety." That took a different kind of courage. Elena set down the photograph. "Tell me about her. You watched over her for 3 years. What is she like?" Thomas smiled slightly, remembering. "Brilliant, stubborn. She reads everything, questions everything. The family she lives with, the Lawrences, they are good people, but they know she is different, special. She does not quite fit in Boston society. Too independent, too curious, like her mother," Elena murmured. "Like both her parents," Thomas corrected. "She has your intelligence, your strength. But she also has James's strategic mind, his ability to see patterns, to plan." The comparison to Blackwood made Elena flinch. Thomas noticed. "I am sorry," he said, "but you need to understand who she is, what she is capable of. She figured out the truth about you on her own. Traced money transfers, decoded correspondence. She is not a child who needs protection, Eleanor. She is a young woman who has been searching for you her entire life." Elena looked at him. "And when she finds me, when she sees what I am, a spy, a liar, a woman who abandoned her, then she will see someone who survived," Thomas said firmly. "Someone who made impossible choices, someone who loved her enough to let her go." Maria's voice called from downstairs. "Train whistle, 20 minutes out." Elena's heart lurched. She looked at Thomas. "I do not know how to be a mother." Thomas met her eyes. "Then be what you are. Be Eleanor. Be the woman who brought down a corrupt colonel. Be the ghostwriter. She has been looking for that woman all her life." They gathered on the porch as the sun climbed toward noon. Maria stood ready with fresh bread and coffee, her way of preparing for anything. Wei Chen waited near the stables watching the road, and Thomas positioned himself where he could see both the approaching train depot road and the ridge lines where Blackwood's men might watch. Elena checked her Remington for the 10th time. Her hands were steadier now. She had faced death before, faced worse than death. But she had never faced her own daughter. The train appeared in the distance, black smoke against blue sky. Elena's breath caught. Somewhere on that train, a girl she had not seen in 16 years was coming home to a mother she had never known. "What if she hates me?" Elena whispered. Thomas touched her shoulder. "Then you will have to earn her love. The same way you earned Richard's, the same way you earned all of ours, by being worth it." The train pulled into the small depot a mile from the ranch. Elena wanted to ride out to meet it, but Thomas counseled patience. "Let her come to you. Let her choose this." So they waited. After 20 minutes that felt like 20 years, a wagon appeared on the road, the depot keeper driving, and beside him a young woman in a dark traveling dress. Even from a distance, Elena knew her, would have known her anywhere. The way she sat, the way she watched the landscape, the way her hand rested on a small bag, ready for anything. "My daughter," Elena breathed, and for the first time the words felt real. The wagon pulled into the yard. The depot keeper helped Amelia down. She stood there for a moment staring at the ranch, at the house, at the woman on the porch who looked exactly like the faded photograph she had carried for years. Amelia Lawrence was 16 but carried herself older, tall, slender, beautiful in a way that would break hearts and forge destinies. She wore a simple dress but expensive boots, traveled light but smart. In her eyes, Elena saw a lifetime of questions finally about to be answered. "Mrs. Ashford," Amelia said. Her voice was steady, educated Eastern, but underneath, Elena heard the tremor, the hope. Elena stepped off the porch. She wanted to run to her daughter, wanted to hold her, wanted to erase 16 years with a single embrace. But she moved slowly, carefully, giving Amelia space to decide. "Amelia," she said. The name felt like prayer. "You know who I am," Amelia said. It was not a question. "I have always known who you are," Elena replied. "I have known every day since I held you for the first and last time." Amelia's composure cracked slightly. "You left me." The words hit Elena like bullets. "I did." Why? Elena looked at this brave, beautiful girl who was her daughter. "Because keeping you would have killed you. Because the people hunting me would have used you to destroy me. Because I loved you more than I loved myself." Amelia's eyes filled with tears. "That is not fair. You do not get to make me the reason for my own abandonment." "You are right," Elena said. "It is not fair. Nothing about your life has been fair. But I will not lie to you, Amelia. Not now. Not ever. I left you because I was a coward. Because I could not face being a mother while being hunted. Because I chose my survival over your love." The honesty seemed to surprise Amelia. She blinked, tears spilling. "The family I grew up with, they were kind. But they always felt like strangers. I always felt like I was waiting to find where I belonged." Elena's voice broke, and now Amelia looked at her. Really looked. "I do not know yet, but I came here to find out." Maria appeared with coffee. Way took Amelia's bags. Thomas stood back, giving them space. The depot keeper departed, clearly uncomfortable with the emotion. Amelia accepted the coffee, wrapped her hands around the warm cup. She studied the ranch with an appraising eye. "This is where you have been hiding." Elena nodded. "For 5 years, before that other places, always running." "And my father?" Amelia asked, the question Elena had been dreading. Elena glanced at Thomas. He gave a small nod. "Tell her everything." They moved inside to the parlor where Richard's presence still lingered. Elena poured the truth out like water from a dam too long held. She told Amelia about the war, about the mission to infiltrate Blackwood's unit, about the ledger documenting atrocities, about falling pregnant and running. And through it all, Amelia listened, asked questions, processed with the sharp intelligence Thomas had described. "So my father is a war criminal," Amelia said when Elena finished. "And you are a spy who used him to get evidence." "That is the truth," Elena confirmed. Amelia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I read about the Dakota massacres. I know what he did. And I have spent months wondering if that evil is in my blood." Elena reached across the table, stopped short of touching her daughter's hand. "You are not your blood. You are your choices. And you chose to find the truth. You chose to come here despite the danger. That takes courage. James Blackwood lost. Long ago." Amelia looked at Elena's outstretched hand. Slowly, carefully, she placed her own hand in her mother's. The touch was electric. 16 years of separation bridged by skin against skin. "I do not know if I can forgive you," Amelia said softly, "but I want to try." Elena's tears came then. 16 years of held grief pouring out. "I do not deserve forgiveness, but I will spend the rest of my life trying to earn it." They sat like that, hands clasped, while Maria bustled in the kitchen, and Thomas watched the ridgelines and the sun tracked across the sky. After a while, Amelia pulled her hand back. She wiped her eyes, straightened her shoulders. "Now tell me the rest. Tell me why men have been following me in Boston, why my letters were being intercepted, why I had to bribe a telegraph operator to send you that final message." Elena looked at Thomas. He sat forward. "Your father is alive," Thomas said. "And he knows about you now." Amelia absorbed this without flinching. "When did he find out?" "Last night," Elena said. "I told him. It was a mistake." Amelia shook her head. "No, it was inevitable. If he has the resources you describe, he would have found out eventually. Better that he heard it from you than discovered it on his own." The strategic thinking, the calm analysis. So much like Blackwood, it made Elena's heart ache. "He will come for me," Amelia said. "Use me against you." Thomas nodded. "That is his pattern. He uses leverage, finds weaknesses, and exploits them." "Then we need to remove the leverage," Amelia said simply. "We need to make it clear that I am not a weapon to be used." "How?" Maria asked from the doorway. Amelia smiled, and for a moment Elena saw both herself and James in that expression, cunning and courage combined. "We let him think he can get to me. We set a trap, and we end this." Elena stared at her daughter. "You have been here for an hour, and you are already planning military strategy." "I have been planning this for months," Amelia corrected. "Ever since I figured out who my parents were. Did you think I came here unprepared?" She reached into her bag and pulled out a sheaf of papers. Maps, notes, telegraph transcripts, financial records. "I have been tracking Blackwood's movements for 3 months, Amelia said, spreading the papers on the table. "I know his patterns, his associates, his weaknesses." Thomas leaned forward, studying the documents. "How did you get these?" Amelia smiled. "Boston has excellent libraries, and telegraph operators can be surprisingly talkative when a young woman asks the right questions." Elena felt pride and terror warring in her chest. "Amelia, this is dangerous. Life is dangerous, Mother." Amelia used the word deliberately, testing it. "Hiding is not the same as being safe. I learned that from you." The word mother hung in the air. Elena wanted to reach for her daughter again, but held back. Way appeared in the doorway, his face tight with concern. Riders coming? From the north. Moving slow. Deliberate. Everyone moved to the windows. Elena counted 8 men, not Blackwood's usual rough soldiers. These rode with military precision, former cavalry, dangerous. They stopped at the property line just beyond rifle range. One rider moved forward alone, hands visible, no weapons drawn. He carried a white flag. "Parley," Thomas said. "James wants to talk." Elena checked her Remington. "Or he wants to see if Amelia is really here." "Then let us show him," Amelia said. She stood, walked toward the door. Elena grabbed her arm. "No, you do not know what he is capable of." Amelia looked at her mother. "Neither does he know what I am capable of." "Is that not the point?" Before Elena could argue, Amelia opened the door and stepped onto the porch. Elena and Thomas rushed after her, weapons ready. The rider with the white flag stopped 30 feet from the porch. He was young, maybe 25, with the rigid posture of a soldier who had never quite left the war behind. "Colonel Blackwood requests a meeting," the soldier called. "Just him and Mrs. Ashford. No weapons, no tricks." 1 hour. At Miller's Creek. Elena stepped forward. "Tell the colonel I will meet him." Amelia interrupted. Everyone froze. The soldier. Elena, Thomas, even the wind seemed to stop. "I am Amelia Kessler," the girl continued. "James Blackwood's daughter. If he wants a meeting, he can meet with me." The soldier stared clearly, not expecting this. "I have orders." "Then get new orders," Amelia said calmly. "Tell the colonel his daughter wishes to meet him. 1 hour. Miller's Creek. He comes alone or he does not come at all." The soldier hesitated, then turned his horse and rode back to the others. They conferred briefly, then all 8 riders turned and left. Elena grabbed Amelia's shoulders. "What are you doing?" "You cannot meet him alone." "I will not be alone," Amelia said. "You will be there. Thomas will be there. Way and Maria covering from the ridges. This is how we end it, Mother, face to face. Truth for truth." Thomas looked at Elena. "She has a point. James wanted leverage. She just took it away. Now he has to deal with her as a person, not a pawn." Elena wanted to argue, wanted to lock Amelia in the house and face Blackwood herself. But she saw the determination in her daughter's eyes, the same determination that had driven Elena to infiltrate a military camp 16 years ago. "This is my choice," Amelia said softly. "The first real choice I have ever made about my own life. Please do not take it from me." Elena closed her eyes, remembered being young, being brave, being willing to risk everything for the truth. "All right," she said, "but we do this smart. We plan every detail, and if anything goes wrong, then we fight." Amelia finished. "Together." The next hour was a flurry of preparation. Thomas checked weapons, planned positions. Maria packed supplies, prepared for the worst. Way scouted the route to Miller's Creek, identified cover. And Elena taught her daughter to shoot. They stood behind the barn, Elena's hands guiding Amelia's on the Remington. The girl was a natural, steady hands, good eye, quick learner. "Your father taught me to shoot," Elena said, "during the war. Before I knew what he was patient, methodical, a good teacher." "Do you think there was ever anything good in him?" Amelia asked, sighting down the barrel. Elena considered this. Once, maybe. Before the war twisted him, before power corrupted him. "I think he was a man who wanted to matter, who wanted to be remembered. The war gave him a way to do that, and he lost himself in it." Amelia fired. The bullet hit center mass on the target. She lowered the gun. "Do you think I am like him?" Elena turned her daughter to face her. "You are like yourself, Amelia. You have his intelligence, his strategic mind. But you have something he lost. Empathy, conscience, the ability to see people as people, not pieces on a board." Amelia's eyes searched her mother's face. "And what did I get from you?" Stubbornness, Elena said with a small smile. "And the belief that some things are worth fighting for even when the odds are impossible." They practiced until Amelia's shots grouped tight and true. Then they rode out a strange procession, Elena and Amelia in the lead, Thomas following. Way and Maria taking the high ground with rifles. Miller's Creek ran through a natural amphitheater of stone, good for meetings, bad for ambushes. The water ran clear over smooth rocks. Trees provided some cover, but mostly it was open ground. Elena chose their position carefully, backs to solid rock, clear sightlines, easy retreat if needed. They waited. The sun was past its peak when Blackwood appeared. He rode alone as promised, his white stallion picking its way carefully down the rocky trail. He wore no uniform, but sat his horse with military bearing. Even from a distance, Elena could see he was unarmed. He stopped 50 feet away, dismounted, walked forward slowly, hands visible. This was the moment Elena had dreaded for 16 years. The confrontation she had run from, hidden from. The reckoning she could no longer avoid, but she was not alone anymore. Emilia stepped forward, placing herself slightly ahead of Elena. The message was clear. This was her meeting, her choice. Blackwood stopped. For a long moment he simply stared at the girl who was his daughter. His face showed a dozen emotions. Wonder, pain, joy, regret. All the things Elena had never seen him express. "Emilia," he said. His voice cracked on the name. "Colonel Blackwood," Emilia replied. Her voice was steady. "James," he corrected softly, "or father if you prefer." "I do not know you well enough to call you father," Emilia said, "and from what I have learned, I am not sure I want to." The words hit Blackwood like a blow. He actually stepped back. "Fair enough," he said. Elena watched this exchange with her heart in her throat. Her daughter and the man who had fathered her meeting for the first time. Two strategic minds circling each other like chess masters before the opening move. "Why did you come?" Blackwood asked. "To Montana, to her." Emilia glanced back at Elena, then forward again. "Because I have spent 16 years wondering who I am, where I came from, because I deserve to know the truth." "And what truth have you learned?" Blackwood asked. "That my mother was brave enough to stop a monster," Emilia said, "even when it cost her everything, even when it cost her me." Blackwood flinched. "And your father? What have you learned about him?" "That he became the thing he was supposed to fight," Emilia said. "That he let war turn him into something cruel. That he has spent 16 years chasing revenge instead of redemption." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the creek seemed to hold its breath. "You are intelligent," Blackwood finally said, "like your mother. But you have a ruthlessness in your honesty. That comes from me." Emilia nodded. "I know. I have both of you in me. The question is which one I choose to be." "You have a choice," Blackwood said. "I never felt I did." "We always have choices," Emilia countered. "You chose to follow orders you knew were wrong. You chose revenge over peace. You chose to hunt my mother instead of letting her go." Blackwood's jaw tightened. "She stole from me, ruined me." "She stopped you from killing more innocent people," Emilia said. "That is not theft. That is justice." Elena wanted to step in to protect Emilia from Blackwood's potential rage, but Thomas's hand on her arm stopped her. "Let her fight her own battle," he whispered. Blackwood took another step forward. "I came here because I wanted to see you, to know you. I do not expect forgiveness. But I want you to understand that I am not just the monster in the stories." "Then tell me," Emilia said. "Tell me who you are beyond the massacres, beyond the revenge. Who is James Blackwood when he is not a colonel or a hunter or a criminal?" Blackwood seemed genuinely surprised by the question. No one had asked him that in years, maybe ever. He looked at the creek, at the mountains, at the sky. "I am a man who wanted to matter," he said finally, "who wanted to be remembered. The war gave me purpose, structure, and when it ended, I was lost. I did terrible things trying to find that purpose again." He looked at Emilia, "And then I learned I have a daughter. A legacy I never knew existed, something that matters more than all the rest." Emilia studied him. "If I matter so much, prove it," Hal Blackwood asked. "Stop," Emilia said simply. "Stop hunting. Stop the revenge. Turn yourself in. Face trial for what you have done. Let the truth come out, whatever it may be." Blackwood's expression hardened. "That ledger contains lies." "Then let a court decide," Emilia said. "If you are innocent, prove it legally. If you are guilty, face the consequences. But stop running. Stop destroying lives. Be better than what you have become." "And if I do this," Blackwood asked, "if I turn myself in?" "Then maybe," Emilia said, "maybe someday I could call you father, not because of blood, but because you earned it." The offer hung between them. Elena saw Blackwood processing it, saw the war in his eyes, pride versus hope, rage versus love. "I need time," Blackwood said, "to think." "You have 1 hour," Emilia replied. "After that, we turn the ledger over to federal marshals. They will hunt you, arrest you. You will spend the rest of your life running or imprisoned. This is your chance to choose differently." Blackwood looked past Emilia to Elena. "You taught her well." I taught her nothing, Elena said. She learned to be brave all on her own. Blackwood nodded slowly. He mounted his horse, turned to leave. Then he paused. Eleanor, he said. Elena met his eyes. I did love you, Blackwood said, in my way. It was sick and twisted and wrong, but it was real. I know, Elena said. That is what made it so terrible. Blackwood rode away. Elena and Amelia stood together watching him go. Thomas emerged from his position, Way and Maria coming down from the ridges. Do you think he will surrender? Thomas asked. Elena shook her head. Number James Blackwood has never surrendered in his life. Then what will he do? Amelia asked. Before Elena could answer, gunfire erupted from the north. Screams. The sound of horses in panic. They ran toward the sound, crested a ridge, and stopped. Below them, a stagecoach lay on its side, horses dead in their traces, bodies scattered around it, Blackwood's men methodically searching the wreckage, and in the dirt crawling toward the trees a young woman, bleeding, desperate. Another survivor from Boston. Thomas breathed. Someone else Amelia corresponded with. Blackwood's men spotted her, raised their rifles. Elena did not think, did not plan. She raised her Remington and fired. The shot was impossible. 300 yards downhill, wind gusting. The bullet took the rifle from the lead man's hands. Every head turned toward the ridge, toward Elena, standing there, smoke curling from her gun. The Ghost Rider, someone shouted. Blackwood's men scattered. Elena, Thomas Way, and Maria ran down the slope. Amelia right behind them, despite Elena's shouted protests. They reached the girl just as more riders appeared. Blackwood's full force. 30 men. All armed, all converging. Run, Elena told her daughter. Get to the ranch. Bar the doors. Amelia raised the pistol Elena had taught her to shoot. I am not running anymore, Mother. There was no time to argue. Blackwood's men surrounded them. Weapons drawn. The survivors huddled together. 7 people against 30. Impossible odds. Then a voice cut through the tension. Hold your fire. Blackwood rode through his men, his face ashen. He stared at the carnage, at the dead stagecoach driver, at the terrified girl bleeding in the dirt. This was not my order, he said. His second in command, a scarred man named Pike, stepped forward. You said eliminate anyone who could connect the girl to Boston, anyone who knew about the correspondence. I said watch them. Blackwood roared. Not slaughter them like animals. Pike's expression did not change. With respect, Colonel, there is no difference. Not anymore. And Elena saw it. The moment Blackwood realized he had lost control, that the monster he had created was now larger than himself. Stand down, Blackwood ordered. All of you. Now. Pike smiled. No, sir. See, the men and I have been talking. We have been following your orders for years. Killing, stealing, hiding. And for what? Some woman you could not let go, some ledger from a war nobody remembers. He looked at Blackwood with contempt. We are done. We are taking what we are owed, starting with this ranch, this land, and anyone who gets in our way dies. The other men shifted, some with Pike, some uncertain, the unit fracturing. Blackwood's hand moved to his empty holster. You are making a mistake, Lieutenant. Pike laughed. I am taking back my life. You can join us, or you can die with them. Blackwood looked at Elena, at Amelia, at the daughter he had just met. The choice Elena had given him 16 years ago playing out again, power or conscience, revenge or redemption. James Blackwood made his choice. He stepped between his men and the survivors. His voice was quiet but absolute. If you want them, you go through me first. Pike's smile faded. You are choosing them over your own men. I am choosing what is right, Blackwood said. For the first time in 16 years. Then you die. First, Pike said. He raised his pistol. Elena and Thomas moved simultaneously. Elena's shot took Pike in the shoulder. Thomas's shot disabled 2 more men. Way fired from behind cover. Maria's shotgun roared. Chaos erupted. Blackwood's men split, some firing on each other, some fleeing. Blackwood fought beside Elena and Thomas, protecting Amelia with his own body. In the confusion, Elena grabbed her daughter. Run now! But Amelia pointed. More riders coming from the east. Federal marshals, at least 20, led by Marshal Wallace, coming at full gallop. Blackwood's men broke and ran. Pike, wounded, tried to rally them. Failed. They scattered into the hills, each man for himself. The marshals swept through, rounding up those who surrendered. Pike spat blood and curses as they cuffed him. Marshal Wallace, dismounted, surveyed the scene. His eyes landed on Blackwood. "Colonel James Blackwood, you are under arrest for war crimes, murder, conspiracy, and about 40 other charges." Blackwood did not resist. He simply nodded. He looked at Emilia one last time. "I am sorry," he said, "for all of it, but mostly for not being the father you deserved." Emilia's eyes filled with tears. "You could have been, if you had chosen differently." "Sooner." "I know," Blackwood said, "and that is something I will carry for the rest of my life." As they led him away, he called back, "Eleanor." Elena turned. "Thank you," Blackwood said, "for giving her a chance to know me, even if I did not deserve it." Elena said nothing. What was there to say? She had spent 16 years running from this man, and in the end he had saved her daughter's life. Thomas put his arm around her shoulders. "It is over." But Elena knew better. It was not over. It was just beginning, because Emilia stood beside her, real, present, her daughter. And for the first time in 16 years, Eleanor Kessler had something worth more than survival. She had family. The sun was setting as they rode back to the ranch. Emilia rode beside Elena, their horses matching stride. Behind them, Thomas and Maria talked quietly. Wei sang a Chinese traveling song. The wounded girl from the stagecoach slept in the wagon safe now. Mother Emilia said, testing the word again. "Yes, can I stay here in Montana with you?" Elena's heart swelled. "For as long as you want." Emilia smiled. "Then I think I will stay for a very long time." They rode home through the gathering dark, and Elena thought of Richard resting on his hill, watching over them still. "You were right," she told his memory, about everything. Behind them, the ghost of Paradise Valley faded into legend. Ahead, something new was beginning. A mother and daughter, finding their way home, together at last. The ranch felt different in the days after the arrests, quieter, like the land itself was holding its breath, waiting to see if peace could truly take root after so much violence. Elena stood in the doorway of what had been Richard's study and was now slowly becoming Emilia's room. Her daughter sat at the desk writing letters, to the Lawrence family in Boston explaining everything, to friends who deserved to know the truth, to the girl they had rescued from the stagecoach who was recovering at Dr. Catherine Mill's clinic in town. Emilia looked up, caught Elena watching. She smiled, small and uncertain, but real. "Morning, Mother." The word still caught Elena off guard, still made her heart ache, with 16 years of missed mornings. "Morning," she replied. "Sleep well." Emilia set down her pen. "I dreamed about him, about my father." Elena entered the room, sat in the chair beside the desk, Richard's chair. She could almost feel his presence, approving, supporting. What kind of dream? Emilia's fingers traced patterns on the wood. He was young, before the war. We were walking through a field and he was teaching me about birds, their names, their songs. It felt real, like a memory, except it could not be. Elena understood. Sometimes we dream the lives we wish we had lived. "Do you ever dream about him?" Emilia asked. About what it could have been like if he had been different, Elena considered this. "Once, a long time ago, before I knew what he was capable of, I dreamed he was just a man, not a monster, not a hero. Just someone I could have loved honestly. And now? Now I dream about you," Elena said, "about making up for lost time, about being the mother I never was." Emilia reached across the desk, took Elena's hand. "You are being her now. That is what matters." A knock at the front door interrupted them. Thomas's voice called from downstairs. "Elena, you have a visitor." They exchanged glances. Visitors had been constant since the arrests. Marshals needing statements, reporters chasing stories. Neighbors curious about the ghostwriter revealed. Elena had turned most of them away, but when she reached the parlor, the visitor was unexpected. A woman stood there, perhaps 60, dressed in severe black. Her face was weathered but dignified. Her eyes, pale blue, held a depth of grief Elena recognized. "Mrs. Ashford," the woman said, "my name is Catherine Blackwood. I am James's mother." The room went silent. Thomas stood near the fireplace, hand near his weapon. Maria hovered in the kitchen doorway. Emilia appeared on the stairs behind Elena. "Mrs. Blackwood," Elena said carefully, "I am sorry for your loss." The older woman's expression did not change. "My son is not dead, Mrs. Ashford. He is in prison awaiting trial. That is not the same thing." "Of course," Elena replied. "Please sit." Catherine Blackwood settled into the chair with the bearing of someone accustomed to difficult conversations. She studied Elena for a long moment, then looked past her to Emilia on the stairs. "And you must be my granddaughter," she said. Emilia descended slowly, her composure remarkable for a girl of 16. "I am Emilia." Catherine's eyes filled with tears, but she did not let them fall. "You look like my mother." She had that same dark hair, those same intelligent eyes. She turned back to Elena. "I came here to ask you something, Mrs. Ashford, and I ask you to consider it carefully before you answer." Elena waited. "I want to know if my son can be saved," Catherine said. "Not from prison, not from punishment. He deserves what is coming. But from himself, from the darkness that has consumed him." The question hung in the air. "I do not know," Elena answered honestly. 16 years ago, I thought there was nothing left to save. But yesterday, I saw him choose to protect my daughter over his own life. So perhaps there is something still worth redeeming." Catherine nodded slowly. "Thomas came to see me last night. He told me everything. About the war crimes, about the murders, about the obsession that drove James to destroy his own life chasing you." She paused, gathering strength. "I failed him. I raised him to believe that honor meant never admitting weakness, that strength meant never showing mercy. The war found those cracks and widened them until my son became something I do not recognize." "You did not make him a killer," Elena said gently. "He chose that." "But I made him a man who could not choose differently," Catherine replied, "who could not see another path." Emilia spoke from behind Elena. "He can see it now, if he wants to." Catherine looked at her granddaughter. "You spoke with him?" "At Miller's Creek." Emilia nodded. "I told him he could earn the right to be called father if he chose truth over revenge." "And what did he say?" "He said he needed time to think," Emilia replied. "And then his men betrayed him, and he chose to protect us instead of saving himself. So perhaps he has already started choosing differently." Catherine walked to the window. When James was a boy, he found a bird with a broken wing. He spent weeks nursing it back to health, fed it by hand, protected it from cats. And when it finally flew away, he cried because he knew he would never see it again. She turned back to them. "That boy is still in there somewhere, buried under years of war and pain and terrible choices. But he is there." Elena felt something shift in her chest, a softening toward the man who had hunted her for 16 years. Not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps understanding. "Why are you telling me this?" Elena asked. "Because James is going to trial in 3 weeks, Catherine said, and the prosecutor is going to paint him as a monster, as someone irredeemable, as someone who should hang." "And you want me to testify that he is not?" Elena asked. Catherine shook her head. "No, I want you to tell the truth. All of it, the good and the terrible. Let the court see the whole man, not just the crimes." She looked at Emilia. "And I want my granddaughter to know that her father's blood does not damn her, that she comes from a line that has also produced kindness and courage, even if James forgot how to access those qualities." Emilia's voice was small. "Will you tell me about him? About who he was before?" Catherine smiled, sad but genuine. "I would like nothing more." Over the next weeks, the ranch became a place of unlikely healings. Catherine Blackwood visited, often sharing stories of James as a boy, as a young man, as someone who had not yet lost himself to darkness. Emilia listened, processing, building a fuller picture of the man who was her father. Thomas traveled to the territorial capital, helping Marshal Wallace build the case. The ledger had been authenticated, witnesses interviewed, evidence compiled. The trial would be massive, exposing corruption that reached into the highest levels of military and civilian government, and Elena found herself preparing to testify, to stand in a courtroom and tell 16 years of truth. The night before they were to leave for the capital, Elena could not sleep. She walked to Richard's grave on the hill, the stars bright overhead. "I am scared," she told his memory, "scared of facing James in court, Scared of what they will ask me. Scared of what Amelia will hear. The wind rustled through the grass. Elena imagined Richard's voice. Be brave. Be honest. Be the woman I always knew you were. She heard footsteps behind her, Amelia wrapped in a shawl against the autumn chill. Could not sleep either, Elena asked. Amelia stood beside her mother at the grave. I keep thinking about tomorrow, about seeing him again. In chains this time. You do not have to come, Elena said. You can stay here with Maria. Amelia shook her head. I need to see this through. I need to understand all of it. They stood in silence, watching the valley sleep below them. Mother Amelia said softly, Do you think people can truly change, or do they just become better at hiding what they are? Elena considered this. I think change is possible, but it requires more than wanting to be different. It requires facing what you have done, making amends, doing the hard work of becoming better. And my father I do not know yet, Elena admitted. But he has started. That is more than I ever expected. The trial began on a cold morning in late October. The territorial courthouse was packed with journalists, military observers, victims' families, and the merely curious. Elena, Amelia, and Thomas sat in the front row, Catherine Blackwood beside them. James Blackwood entered in chains flanked by guards. He had lost weight in the weeks of imprisonment. His hair was completely white now, but his posture remained military straight, his eyes clear. When his gaze found Amelia, something in his expression crumbled. He mouthed two words, I am sorry. Amelia's hand found Elena's. They held on as the proceedings began. The prosecution was devastating. Witness after witness testified to Blackwood's crimes. The massacre at Wounded Creek, the murders of ranchers, the systematic land theft, the corruption, each revelation worse than the last. Elena watched Amelia's face grow paler with each testimony. This was her father they were describing, this monster who killed without mercy. But when the defense called their witnesses, a different picture emerged. Soldiers who had served under Blackwood spoke of his tactical brilliance, his care for his men. Civilians testified that he had protected them during the war's chaos. Catherine Blackwood wept as she described the boy who had cried when his rescued bird flew away. The courtroom was confused. Which James Blackwood was real? The killer or the protector? The monster or the man? On the third day, the prosecution called Eleanor Kessler to testify. Elena stood, smoothed her dress, walked to the witness stand. She placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor was a sharp man named Harrison. He approached with papers in hand. Mrs. Ashford, he began. Or should I call you Eleanor Kessler, or perhaps Ghost Rider? Any of those names are mine, Elena replied. Harrison held up the ledger. You stole this from Colonel Blackwood in 1862. Correct? I removed it from his possession. Yes. After infiltrating his unit under false pretenses, I was sent by Union intelligence to gather evidence of war crimes, Elena said clearly. It was not false pretenses. It was my assignment. Harrison smiled. And during this assignment, you engaged in a romantic relationship with the defendant. Correct, Elena met Blackwood's eyes across the courtroom. I allowed him to believe I cared for him. It was part of my cover. So you lied to him. I deceived him, yes, to stop him from murdering more innocent people. Harrison paced. And you became pregnant with his child during this deception. Yes, did you tell him no? Why not? Because I had seen what he was capable of, Elena said. I could not allow a child to be raised by a man who slaughtered children. The courtroom murmured. The judge called for silence. Harrison continued. After you fled with the ledger, did you attempt to contact Colonel Blackwood to tell him he had a daughter? No. In 16 years, you never once reached out. Never. So you deny him not only the ledger, but also knowledge of his own child, effectively destroying his life twice over. Elena's voice hardened. I saved my daughter from a monster. I would do it again. Harrison turned to the jury. So we have established that Mrs. Kessler admits to deception, theft, and denying a father his parental rights, all while claiming moral superiority. Elena's defense attorney, a woman named Sarah Morrison, objected, Relevance, Your Honor. Mrs. Kessler is not on trial here. The judge agreed. Sustained. Mr. Harrison, move on. Harrison nodded. Mrs. Kessler In your observation, was Colonel Blackwood capable of kindness, of mercy? Elena paused. The courtroom waited. Once she said finally, I believe he was. The man I first met had moments of genuine compassion. But the war and his own choices corrupted those qualities until they were unrecognizable. So you are saying he changed. I am saying he chose to become what he became, Elena replied. And choices can always be made differently. Harrison seemed surprised by this answer. Even after everything he has done to you, the hunting, the threats, the murders. Elena looked at Blackwood. Even after all of that, I believe people can choose to be better. Whether they do or not is up to them. The courtroom buzzed. Harrison dismissed her. But Sarah Morrison stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Kessler, you witnessed Colonel Blackwood's actions at Miller's Creek 2 weeks ago. Can you describe what happened? Elena recounted the scene, Pike's betrayal, the chaos, and Blackwood's choice to protect them instead of saving himself. In your professional opinion as a former intelligence operative, Sarah asked, was this action consistent with the monster the prosecution has described? No, Elena said. It was the action of a man trying to make amends, trying to choose differently. Sarah nodded. One final question. If you could go back 16 years, knowing what you know now, would you still take that ledger? Still run? Elena did not hesitate. Yes, because that ledger saved lives, exposed corruption, and led to this moment where justice can finally be served. Sarah smiled. No further questions. As Elena stepped down, she passed Blackwood's chair. He looked up at her. Thank you, he whispered, for being honest. Elena paused. I hope you can do the same. When Blackwood took the stand the next day, the courtroom was silent enough to hear a pin drop. He swore his oath and sat facing the prosecutor who would try to destroy him and the jury who would decide his fate. Harrison began immediately. Colonel Blackwood, did you order the massacre at Wounded Creek? Blackwood's answer was clear. Yes. Did you knowingly kill civilians, including women and children? Yes. Did you falsify reports to hide these crimes? Yes. The admissions continued. Each yes, another nail in his coffin. Blackwood did not deny, did not justify, did not explain. He simply accepted responsibility. Harrison seemed almost disappointed by the lack of fight. Why, he finally asked, why commit these atrocities? Blackwood was quiet for a long moment. Because I believed it was my duty. Because the war made monsters of all of us. And I leaned into it instead of resisting. Because I was angry and broken. And I turned that brokenness outward instead of healing it. He looked at the jury. I have no excuses. I did terrible things. Things that haunt me every night. Things I can never undo or make right. Then why, Harrison pressed, should this court show you any mercy? Blackwood's eyes found Amelia in the crowd. Because mercy is not about what I deserve. It is about what kind of society we want to be. One that believes in redemption, or one that only knows revenge. He turned back to Harrison. I am guilty, I know that. I accept whatever punishment this court decides. But I also know that I have started to change, started to choose differently. And if I am given the chance, I want to spend whatever time I have left trying to make amends. The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order. Harrison sat down clearly unsatisfied. Sarah Morrison stood for her cross-examination. Colonel Blackwood, you have admitted to terrible crimes, but I want to ask about something else, about the moment at Miller's Creek when you chose to protect your daughter and her mother instead of escaping. Why? Blackwood's voice cracked. Because I looked at Amelia and I saw what I could have been, what I could have created if I had chosen differently 16 years ago. And I could not let that possibility die for my own cowardice. Sarah walked closer. You knew protecting them would mean arrest, trial. Probable execution, I knew. And you made that choice anyway. Blackwood looked at Amelia. I made that choice for the first time in 16 years because of her. Because she is proof that I am capable of creating something good even if I do not deserve her. Sarah nodded. No further questions. The judge called a recess. Elena, Amelia, Thomas, and Catherine gathered outside. He is going to be convicted, Thomas said, even with his testimony. The crimes are too severe, I know, Catherine said, but at least he told the truth. At least he faced it. Amelia was quiet, processing everything she had heard. "Are you all right?" Elena asked. Amelia nodded slowly. "I think so. It is strange, hearing him admit everything, owning it. Part of me wishes he had denied it, made it easier to hate him." But Elena prompted. "But seeing him accept responsibility," Amelia said, "seeing him try to be better, even knowing he will pay the price, that is harder. That requires me to see him as human." Thomas put his hand on Amelia's shoulder. "That is what real courage looks like. Not denying your sins, but facing them." The trial lasted 2 more weeks, more witnesses, more evidence, more revelations that shook the territorial government to its foundations. In the end, the jury deliberated for 3 days. When they returned, the foreman stood. "On all counts of murder, we find the defendant guilty. On all counts of war crimes, guilty. On all counts of conspiracy, guilty." The judge asked Blackwood to stand. "James Blackwood, you have been found guilty of crimes so numerous and severe that this court has no choice but to impose the maximum sentence. You are hereby sentenced to hang by the neck until dead, sentenced to be carried out in 30 days. The courtroom exploded. Catherine collapsed in tears. Amelia gripped Elena's hand so tight it hurt. Thomas stood stone-faced. And Blackwood simply nodded, accepting his fate. But then Sarah Morrison stood. "Your Honor, the defense moves for a reduction of sentence based on the defendant's cooperation, his admission of guilt, and his recent actions showing genuine remorse and change." The judge looked skeptical. "Ms. Morrison, the crimes are too severe for leniency." Sarah held up papers. "Your Honor, we have affidavits from 15 families whose loved ones were murdered by Pike and other members of Blackwood's unit. Families who would have never known the truth without the Colonel's testimony. We have evidence that his confession has led to the arrest of corrupt officials across 3 territories. We have testimony showing he risked his life to protect innocents." She paused. "I am not asking for freedom, Your Honor. I am asking for life in prison instead of execution. Let him spend the rest of his days trying to make amends. Let him be an example of how even the worst among us can choose to be better." The judge was silent for a long time. Finally he spoke. "I will take this under advisement. The court will reconvene in 1 week for final sentencing." That week was the longest of Elena's life. She and Amelia walked the ranch, talked about everything, and nothing tried to process what justice meant when it was this complicated. Catherine visited often. She and Amelia were building a relationship, grandmother and granddaughter, finding each other despite the darkness between them. Thomas spent his days writing, documenting everything for the historical record, making sure the truth would survive even after they were all gone. And Elena found herself thinking about James Blackwood, about the boy who had cried when his bird flew away, about the man who had become a monster, about the father who had chosen to die protecting his daughter. On the morning of the final sentencing, Elena made a decision. She wrote a letter, addressed it to the judge, and she sealed it with wax-pressing Richard's signet ring into the soft red surface. The courtroom was even more crowded than before. Everyone wanted to see how this would end. The judge entered. Everyone stood. He sat, adjusted his spectacles, and began. "I have received numerous petitions for mercy and equally numerous demands for the maximum sentence. I have read every affidavit, considered every argument, and I have prayed for wisdom in this impossible decision." He looked at Blackwood. "Colonel James Blackwood, you have committed crimes that cry out for the harshest punishment. You have murdered. You have tortured. You have corrupted the very institutions meant to protect us." Blackwood stood straight, ready to accept his fate. However, the judge continued, "This court must also consider that you have taken responsibility for your actions. You have testified against your co-conspirators, bringing justice to dozens of other cases, and you have in recent weeks shown genuine remorse and a desire to make amends." He held up a letter. "This morning I received a petition from Mrs. Eleanor Kessler, the woman you hunted for 16 years, the woman whose life you destroyed, the mother of your child." Elena felt every eye turn to her. Amelia squeezed her hand. The judge read aloud, "Your Honor." Elena's words carried through the silent courtroom. "I write to you not to ask for mercy for James Blackwood, but to ask for justice. True justice which considers not only punishment, but also the possibility of redemption. Colonel Blackwood destroyed my life and the lives of countless others. He deserves to pay for those crimes. But he also saved my daughter's life when he could have chosen to save himself. That action does not erase his sins, but it shows that change, however small and late, is possible. I ask that you sentence him to life in prison. Let him spend his remaining years working to make amends. Let him be a living example that accountability and redemption can coexist. Let my daughter have the possibility of knowing her father as something more than a monster, even if that knowing can only happen through prison walls. Justice without mercy is cruelty, but mercy without accountability is weakness. I ask for both. The judge set down the letter. After much deliberation, I am commuting your sentence from death to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. You will spend the rest of your days in the territorial prison where you will assist in the ongoing investigation into corruption and war crimes. You will never be free, but you will have the chance to choose every day to be better than you were. The gavel fell. Blackwood stood motionless, processing. Then he turned to find Elena in the crowd. He mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." Elena nodded once. As they led him away in chains, Amelia began to cry. Not from sadness or joy, but from the overwhelming complexity of it all. They let Amelia visit him once before he was transferred to the territorial prison. Elena waited outside with Thomas, while daughter and father met in a small room with guards watching. "What do you think they are saying?" Thomas asked. Elena shook her head. "Whatever they need to say." Inside, Amelia and James Blackwood sat across a scarred wooden table, an ocean of history and hurt between them. "I do not know how to talk to you," Amelia said finally. Blackwood's smile was sad. "I do not know how to be your father." "Then maybe we can learn together," Amelia offered. "Even if it has to be like this, through walls and guards and letters." "Why?" Blackwood asked. "Why would you give me that chance because my mother did?" Amelia said, "Because she could have let you hang, and she chose mercy instead. And if she can make that choice after everything you did to her, maybe I can make the smaller choice of getting to know you." Blackwood's eyes filled with tears. "I do not deserve this." "No," Amelia agreed. "But maybe that is the point. Maybe mercy is not about deserving. Maybe it is about choosing to see the humanity in people even when they have lost sight of it themselves." She reached across the table but did not quite touch his hand. "I am not promising forgiveness. I am not promising love. But I am promising to try, if you promise to keep choosing better." Blackwood placed his hand near hers, not touching, but close. "I promise. Every day for the rest of my life." When Amelia emerged, her eyes were red but clear. Elena embraced her. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Like I can breathe again," Amelia said. "Like I finally understand where I come from, the good and the terrible, and I can choose who I want to be." They rode back to Montana 3 days later. The trial was over. Justice had been served, imperfect but real. And now life could begin again. 6 months later, Paradise Valley bloomed with spring. Elena stood on the porch of the ranch, watching Amelia work with the horses in the training ring. Her daughter had a gift, a natural understanding that combined Elena's intuition with Blackwood's strategic mind. Thomas approached 2 cups of coffee in hand, a routine they had developed over the long winter. "Letter came from the prison," he said, handing her an envelope. Elena opened it. Blackwood's handwriting careful and controlled. "Dear Eleanor and Amelia," it began, "I have been teaching literacy classes to the other prisoners. Strange how much meaning I find in helping others learn to read and write their own stories. The warden says I am a model prisoner. I told him I am simply trying to become a model human being. It is harder than I expected and easier than I deserve. Amelia, thank you for your last letter. Knowing about your studies, your work with the horses, your life gives me purpose. I will never be the father I should have been, but I can be someone you are not ashamed to know. Eleanor, I owe you everything. My life, my chance at redemption, my daughter's willingness to see me as human. I can never repay that debt, but I will spend every day trying. With gratitude and remorse, James." Elena folded the letter carefully. Thomas watched her face. "How do you feel about him now?" he asked. Elena considered this. I do not forgive him, not entirely, but I understand him, and I believe he is trying." Thomas nodded. "That is more than most people manage." They stood in comfortable silence watching Amelia ride. The girl had grown in 6 months. Taller, stronger, more confident. She was finding herself in this valley far from Boston's constraints. Maria emerged from the house. More visitors, families wanting to learn from Elena, women who had heard the story of the Ghost Rider and wanted to learn to protect themselves. Elena had started teaching, not just shooting and riding, but strategy, self-reliance, how to survive in a world that often demanded too much from women. The school met 3 times a week, young women and old, rich and poor, white and Chinese and Mexican and Native, all of them learning from the woman who had faced a monster and survived. Thomas touched Elena's arm gently. "There is something I need to tell you." She looked at him, saw the seriousness in his eyes. "The Army has asked me to work with them, reforming their investigative procedures, making sure what happened with James never happens again." Elena felt her heart sink. "You are leaving." "Not forever," Thomas said quickly. "But yes, for a while. The work is in Washington. It could take years." Elena nodded, understanding, warring with disappointment. "You should go. This is important." Thomas took her hand. "But when I am done, I would like to come back, if you would have me." Elena looked at this man who was her enemy's brother, who had helped her save her daughter, who had become something more than friend but not quite lover. Not yet. "I would like that," she said. Thomas smiled, relieved. "Then I will come back." He left 2 weeks later. Elena and Amelia stood on the porch watching him ride away. When he reached the ridge, he turned, waved. They waved back. "Will he really return?" Amelia asked. "I think so," Elena said. "He is not his brother. When he makes a promise, he keeps it." "Good," Amelia said. "Because I think you deserve to be happy, Mother, and he makes you happy." Elena looked at her daughter, surprised. "When did you become so wise?" Amelia smiled. "I had a good teacher, even if she came to it late." The months turned to years. Amelia grew into a formidable young woman. She took over much of the ranch's operations, her strategic mind perfect for the complex work of breeding and training. Elena's school grew too. Women came from across the territory to learn, not just skills, but confidence. The belief that they could defend themselves, could make their own choices, could be more than society expected. Thomas returned after 3 years as promised. He and Elena married quietly, with Amelia and Maria as witnesses. It was not passionate love. It was something deeper. Partnership. Understanding. 2 people who had walked through fire and chose to build something good from the ashes. And once a month, Amelia traveled to the territorial prison. She would sit with her father for an hour, separated by bars, and they would talk. About books, about horses, about the world beyond prison walls. Blackwood never asked for pity, never claimed he deserved freedom. He simply accepted each visit as a gift and tried in small ways to be worthy of it. On Amelia's 20th birthday, she received a package from the prison. Inside was a carved wooden horse, intricate and beautiful, and a note in Blackwood's hand. "I made this with my own hands. The first thing I have created in 20 years that was meant to bring joy instead of pain. Happy birthday, my daughter. I am proud of the woman you have become. Love, your father." Amelia placed the horse on her mantle where it caught the light from the window, a reminder that even broken people could create beauty, even damaged souls could choose to make something good. 5 years after the trial, Catherine Blackwood passed away peacefully in her sleep. At her funeral, Elena stood with Amelia and Thomas, paying respects to a woman who had lost her son but gained a granddaughter. James was allowed to attend, heavily guarded. He stood at his mother's grave and wept. When it was over, he approached Elena. "Thank you for coming," he said. "She was a good woman," Elena replied. "She deserved to be honored." Blackwood looked at Amelia. "She told me once that you saved me, not by stopping me 16 years ago, but by giving me a reason to be better now." Elena met his eyes. "We saved each other, in different ways." As the guards led him back to the prison wagon, Blackwood called back. "Take care of our daughter," always, Elena promised. 10 years after the trial, on a summer morning, bright with promise, Elena stood on the hill beside Richard's grave. She came here less often now, not because she loved him less, but because she had learned to carry him with her instead of leaving him behind. "Thank you," she told his memory, "for knowing who I was and loving me anyway, for protecting Amelia when I could not, for teaching me that home is not a place but the people who see your truth and stand beside you anyway." Below, the ranch spread out in all its glory. Amelia was teaching a class of young women in the training ring. Thomas worked in his study writing his memoirs, documenting everything so history would remember the truth. Maria tended her garden singing songs in Spanish that made the vegetables grow sweet. And Elena realized that this was what redemption looked like. Not a single moment of change, but a lifetime of small choices, to be honest, to be kind, to face the past without letting it define the future. She was 60 years old now. Her hair was silver. Her hands showed the work of decades, but her aim was still true, her mind still sharp, and her heart, once closed and guarded, had learned to open again. The ghostwriter was legend now, stories told around campfires, songs sung in saloons, a woman who had faced a monster and won. But Eleanor Kessler, Elena Ashford, mother, teacher, friend, she was real, she was here, she was home. And that was enough. As Elena walked down the hill toward her family, toward her life, she thought of all the twists and turns that had brought her to this moment. The choices made in darkness that led to light. The pain that became strength. The loss that became love. Behind her, the past rested quietly. Ahead, the future waited with open arms. And for the first time in her life, Eleanor Kessler was not afraid to meet it. She was ready. She was home. She was free. The end.